not by choice, but I was listening to Mark Levin, and it was his based on his podcast, whatever you want to call it, where he was at the same time that Zelensky was having his meeting with Donald J. Trump and J.D. Vance. He was on the air, right? So he wasn't seeing or hearing necessarily what was going on during that time, but he was getting fed updates as the show was going on. And it was just very interesting. And so, like, I do consider him to be biased. And I was listening to him and his discussions about Ukraine and Russia, and how he's completely misinformed about what happened leading up to the 24th of February, 2022, and then the events that were unfolding even afterwards, and who he significant events on. Turned out to be wrong, never retracted anything, or doesn't even talk about it. And then there was a female that came on a caller. He has callers on his show, and he hung up on a girl just because she was giving just a little bit of a reality check that Zelensky is possibly a corrupted dictator that needs to be impeached and in jail. And so even with what his discussions have been regarding Israel and Palestine, again, he has so many viewers that are on the right end of the political spectrum that listen to him because he appears to be some kind of a credible source. And this is not me critiquing him. Yeah. So Mark Reed Levin is an American broadcast news analyst, columnist, lawyer, political commentator, and radio personality and writer. He's the host of syndicated radio show The Mark Levin Show, as well as Life, Liberty, and Levin on Fox News. Levin worked in the administration of President Ronald Reagan and was the chief of staff for Attorney General Edwin Meese. He's the former president of the Landmark Legal Foundation, an author of 7 books, and contributor to media outlets such as National Review Online. Since 2015, Levin has been editor-in-chief of the Conservative Review and is known for his incendiary commentary. And so anyways, talks about his early life. And so again, I'm just going to say here that there's possibly a bias between people that are right-wing media influencers, political commentators, people working within government that are listening to people like Mark Levin, who is bought and paid for by the Heritage Foundation. And I looked into the financials and who donates and who they donate to, and who they're affiliated with. It got me onto Project 2025. And looked more into that, including looking at a forward from J.D. Vance from when the book was written, or the Project 25. Anyway, there was a book written. Anyway, law school, all that stuff. So again, this guy has like a great resume. He's got a great. Oh, I keep on doing that. I don't show it. Anyway, he has a great resume, but unfortunately, he's biased, and he's a paid and he's a paid propagandist, whether he knows it or not. And unfortunately, people like him are the ones that get selected in order to push the propaganda and psyops to get us further involved in these proxy wars and these staged and planned events that aren't helping anyone except for the people that fund him, right? And whether he knows it or not, he's misinforming people on the right end of the political spectrum. That's why I'm saying left and right, it's part of the same bird, and it's the same friggin' people that are providing the financial means in order to push the objectives and the aims and goals that they want to unfold. And it's unfortunate that people like that get a platform, they get so much money, they get these deals, all these accolades, these positions and stuff like that, while people like myself, who didn't sell out, who actually report honestly on events that have happened around the world and present day, we don't get any money, any views. In fact, we get the opposite of that. And so, anyways, getting into the Heritage Foundation, because he even says on a show, brought to you by the Heritage Foundation. Like, that's his major funder. And so who heads the Heritage Foundation? Washington, D.C. President is Kevin D. Roberts. Chair is Barbara Van Andel-Gaby. So again, if you like, how do you say that you didn't know anything about Project 2025 when the Heritage Foundation, its president is Kevin D. Roberts, who is the one that created Project 2025? And again, there's a lot of good content in Project 2025 as well. So I'm not saying it's a negative project. I'm also not saying it's a. Anyways, there's more pros than cons in it, but there's still some concerns, right? When they're talking about having more power within the executive, I do see that as more of a dictatorship and tyrannical. But I also believe that the bureaucracy right now is one that's running the show in the U.S. and internationally, and there's a lot of people within that are corrupt and need to be fired and investigated, all that stuff, like I've said before. And so, yeah, I'm just going to shut down things while I go through because I just got so many freaking tabs up. So Heritage Foundation's contributions, over $1 million. The recipients, so Moms for Safe Neighborhoods, over $1 million. Sentinel Action Fund, Donald Trump, Scott Parkinson. So Fairfax County Republican. So anyway, you see where the anyways, look more into the money for this. Okay, Congress bill number. Anyway, Elon Musk did a podcast with Joe Rogan the other day, and he talks about and he's called out the same things that I have, like talking about NGOs and foundations that have provided money from the government, and they have these beautiful titles, right, that make you think that they're actually doing something along those lines, like Patriots for Peace or whatever, or like the evangelical church, DEI, immigrationists, just names that make you think that they're doing a good thing, so that it tugs on your emotional strings, and just and not further investigating where this money is going, what it's being used for, who's profiting from it, even if it's financial kickbacks and gain just for donating to these foundations, these not-for-profits, these NGOs, these foundations, philanthropy organizations. And so he's calling it all out. I still have concerns because, again, SpaceX, AI, AIX, and so unitary executive theory is a constitutional law theory according to which the President of the United States has sole authority over the executive branch. It is an expansive interpretation of presidential power that aims to centralize greater control over the government in the White House. The theory often comes up in jurisprudential disagreements after the president's ability to remove employees within the executive branch, transparency and access to information, discretion over the implementation of new laws. Anyways, it goes on from there. By checks and balances on executive power. You need to have that checks and balances piece, like I've said before, on the executive power, because like that, if you don't, then if you don't have a good, ethical, moral, knowledgeable president, then again, like this is where there's a possibility that there's like a dictatorship or tyranny that can absolutely happen. And it's happened throughout history. So it's not even the first time, not the last time. Yeah, so mandate for leadership. But in Washington, D.C., based on what's been like friggin' propagated from Washington, D.C. over the last, I don't know, like over 100 years, I would say that maybe they need more people to get involved in the think tank that actually think critically. They offer specific conservative policy recommendations designed to be implemented by the federal government. Yeah. The books have traditionally been released to coincide with an incoming U.S. presidential administration. The first edition was released in 1981 following the election of Ronald Reagan to serve to serve as policy guidance for the incoming Reagan. Anyways, goes from there. For reference, but anyway, Project 25, also known as the 2025 Presidential Transition Project, is a political initiative to reshape the federal government of the United States and consolidate executive power in favor of right-wing policies. The plan was published in April 2023 by the Heritage Foundation, an American conservative think tank, in anticipation of Donald Trump winning the 2024 presidential election. The ninth iteration of the Heritage Foundation's Mandate for Leadership Series, Project 2025, is based on a controversial interpretation of the unitary executive theory that states that the entire executive branch is under the complete control of the president. Proponents of Project 25 say it will dismantle a government bureaucracy, again, right now, like just based on the level of corruption and how overinflated it is. I think that it doesn't necessarily need to be dismantled, but there's absolutely like a lot of accountability that needs to be had, and like looking at the financials like people are doing and emailing people to make sure that they actually exist, et cetera, et cetera. that will steer the U.S. towards autocracy. Yeah. Is a system of government in which absolute power is held by the head of state and government, known as an autocrat. It includes some forms of monarchy and all forms of dictatorship, while it is contrasted with democracy and feudalism. Anyway, legal experts say it would undermine the rule of law, separation of powers, separation of church and state, and civil liberties. The project calls for merit-based federal civil service. Again, I think that's a good thing. Workers to be replaced by people loyal to Trump. It's not loyal to Trump. See, this is what I mean. Like, there's a lot of propaganda in this. Like, they're essentially saying here that like if it's anything merit-based, by the way, in government, because taxpayers are paying for these services, like it should be merit-based. All right, there shouldn't be any critical race theory, DEI focus, like the number one priority when it comes to being a pilot, being a firefighter, being in the military, being in law enforcement, being a paramedic. These are services that we are paying for with the expectation that we would have people that are competent and qualified for their job. Merit-based. Other agencies, including Department of Justice. Again, with Department of Justice, there's a two-tiered justice system clearly, and there's people on the lists that are working within the Department of Justice, that are working in the Department of Commerce, that are working in the FTC and Homeland Security and the CIA and the FBI, etc. Again, a small percentage of the people that are employed in these organizations are corrupted, uneducated, uncritical thinking morons. Anyway, like I'm talking about like Biden and Harris and stuff like that. Absolutely. Anyway. So some of the initiatives I think are I actually agree with, and so, but I understand the controversy surrounding it. It proposes criminalizing pornography, removing legal protections against LGBTQ plus discrimination. That's not true at all. Removing legal protections against anti discrimination. Anyway, and ending diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. That do that. That's a lot of money being wasted. That needs to be going on training. That needs to be going on supplies. That need to be going like what are you talking about? While having the DOJ prosecute anti-white racism instead. Like this is what I mean. Like so, even on Wikipedia, it's just super left-leaning, radical. Yeah. So here's Kevin Roberts. It was founded in 1973, so not 2024 anyway. But that Project 2025 gained more circulation around that time. Yeah. Institutionalizing Trumpism. Oh my God. Anyway, so it goes on from there. If you want to read it, read it. I mean, the name of it kind of like I'm not entirely a fan of it. Like, I don't like having my name in it. That's obviously Dawn as in Dawn. Dawn's Early Light. This was from December 6, 2024 from the Heritage Foundation. So it's right there. Kevin D. Roberts, PhD. Heritage Trustee since 2023. So this is, I believe, the 2024 presidential election will prove to be the most consequential in at least a generation and maybe in a century. Could be. I do agree that it could be. It's off to a good start. But where's the Epstein files? Where's the JFK files? The MLK? Where's the, all that stuff. So it goes on from there. So this was, a forward on this. Oh, the light. Okay, Dawn's Early Light, Taking Back Washington to Save America by Kevin D. Roberts. You can buy this now for $25 American, so $10 million Canadian at this point. An instant national bestseller with a foreword by J.D. Vance. Again, I'm just showing you that this is real because some people are saying that this is fake news. Anyway, Heritage Foundation President Kevin Roberts outlines a peaceful second American revolution for voters looking to shift the power. Sample. All right, let's see here. HarperCollins Publishers. Yeah, so it says Kevin D. Roberts, forward by J.D. Vance. Oh, talking about John Travolta. Interesting. So this was all from JD Vance. That was the forward. I'll just say the end. We are no longer in the situation and must take a different approach, as Kevin Roberts writes. It's fine to take a laissez-faire approach when you are in the safety of the sunshine, but when the twilight descends and you hear the wolves, you got to circle the wagon and load the muskets. We are now all realizing it's time to circle the wagon and load the muskets. In the fight that lay ahead, these ideas are an essential weapon. The conspiracy against nature. So yeah, they do call out the climate change hoax and all that stuff, and follow the money and follow who's providing the money to see what kind of messaging you're going to get. 6 billionaire fortunes bankrolling Project 2025. More than 120 million. Oh, and this is from Dismog. Anyway. And looking at JD Vance's connection to that. Anyway, more than 120 million from a few ultra wealthy families has powered the Heritage Foundation and other groups that created the plan to remake American government. This was August 14th, 2024, last year. Since 2020, donor networks linked to just 6 family fortunes have funneled more than 120 million into Project 2025 advisory groups, a DSMOG analysis has found. More than 100 nonprofits led by the Heritage Foundation, a right-wing think tank that is engaged in climate change denial and obstruction for decades, which I think is a good thing. Anyways, I've signed on as advisors to the Project 2025's 900-page mandate for leadership. You can click that link. I did. I looked into it a bit too. Anyway, a plan to rapidly reform or radically alter the U.S. government by shuttering bureaus and offices, overturning regulations, and replacing thousands of public sector employees with hand-picked political allies. Anyway, the Heritage Foundation leadership repeatedly draws attention to the size and diversity of the advisory board, suggesting its numerous coalition partners are part of a broad, movement-wide effort representing a variety of independent viewpoints. That's hilarious. Project 2025 is unparalleled in the history of the conservative movement, both in its size and scope, but also for organizing so many different groups under a single banner, said in 2023. Many of the organizations the 6 families funded also have close ties to Donald Trump and his running mate, Ohio Senator J.D. Vance, Dismog found. Trump has repeatedly denied involvement in or knowledge of Project 2025, though that position conflicts with a growing number of news reports, a disavowal made more awkward by the fact that Vance wrote the foreword to Don's Early Light, a forthcoming book by Heritage Foundation President Kevin D. Roberts that describes his Project 2025 vision. Dismog's review of Project 2025's financial backers found additional links to Trump, Vance, and key figures in their orbit that had not been previously known. These 6 donor networks linked to the family fortunes of a handful of wealthy industrialists have spent years working to loosen environmental regulations and promote climate change denial. Though Heritage describes Project 2025 as a mainstream effort to return government to the people, its funding sources suggest something far less populist. Okay, representatives from 6 donor networks did not respond to Dismog's outreach on the story. Excuse me, I'm so sorry. The Course family. At least 2.7 million to Project 2025's groups since 2020. So, Course kickstarted the Heritage Foundation with an initial gift of $250,000 for years. Okay. Okay, so we got that. Charles E. Koch, at least 9.6 million to Project 2025 since 2020. The CEO and chairman of Koch Industries, a sprawling conglomerate with an oil refinery focus, isn't the biggest donor to Project 2025 groups, but I mean, that's still a lot. Richard and Elizabeth Uihlein, I'm sorry for mispronouncing that. Uihlein? At least 13 million to Project 2025 groups since 2020. Of Uihlein, a company that sells shipping and packing supplies, including its ubiquitous brand of cardboard boxes and other bulk business goods. I'll get through this video. I'm sorry. The Scaife family. Richard Mellon Scaife. A billionaire heir to the vast Mellon fortune was created thanks to his progenitors' exploits in oil and aluminum production, banking. In oil and aluminum production, banking, and other industries. So yeah, you've got that connection. The Sarah Sky Foundation and the Foundation. Barseed, at least $22.4 million to Project 2025 groups. The enigmatic industrialist Barseed, I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that too, primarily built his fortune through his company Trip Light, an electronics manufacturer specializing in surge protectors. He is reportedly a major benefactor supporting the Heartland Institute, world's most prominent think tank supporting skepticism about man-made climate change. More trusts, more foundations. The Bradley family, at least 52.9 million by Lynd and Harry Bradley, founders of the Allen Bradley Company, which made its fortune manufacturing a wide range of electronic projects. Okay. Anyway. Very interesting monopoly there. And if they were sharing, if they weren't sharing and promoting bullshit that is causing further harm and crimes against humanity internationally, I'm talking about what's going on in Israel and Palestine, like Mark Levin, this Heritage Foundation, like you are knowingly or not lying to people. And the same thing with Russia, Ukraine, and more information is coming out on that. And now Mark Levin's trying to sell out Trump, like calling him a bully and all that stuff, and said it could have been handled better. That wasn't Trump's fault. And again, I'm not advocating for him. He's not even my president. I don't even live in that country. There's a lot of good he's doing, but there's also a lot of concerns, like even with the COVID push, like people are forgetting that. People are forgetting SpaceX being ushered in by him, and people are not addressing concerns with people that are in his main network that are still, whether they knowing it or not, they're covering up for things like the moon landings, for things like we're not going to Mars, like we're like this AI biodigital convergence surveillance, like massive international overreach stuff. I don't think people understand that it takes away our basic human rights and freedoms. And if it was good people that were leading these organizations, then that would be like a less of an issue. But when you even look at the NSA and over 400 employees of the NSA that were on classified servers, and this is a fact, and luckily, like, this finally got figured out, but it took Doge, and it talking about extremely sexually perverse topics regarding it was like under the LGBTQ plus IA DEI umbrella, but these people were talking about such disgusting perverted things on taxpayers' dime, and so do you really want these people having access to, I don't know, like hack into your laptop, hack into your smartphone, hack into your surveillance equipment and stuff like that, and be fucking weird or creepy, or like know your habits and your routine and where you go because they have access to unlimited surveillance on you if they wanted to? Come on. This is the current leader that has been destroyed. Of course, it's no longer available.
Till now, but you will feel it in the future.
It was at this moment that he knew he fucked up.
The beginning. Sure. First of all, during the war, everybody has problems. Even you, but you have nice ocean and don't feel now, but you will feel it.
This is what I wanted to share. I don't know why I was sharing that. I'm sorry.
Wouldn't it be crazy if the Donald Trump administration just released a fresh batch of Epstein files?
And wouldn't it be crazy if the files they released were heavily redacted? Shocker. And wouldn't it be crazy if I showed you that files released previously through court cases are actually less redacted than the they just released? And wouldn't it be crazy if, just like last time they released Epstein documents, there were a lot of celebrity names, but none of these celebrities show any proof that they even did anything because there's no flight logs or nothing. It's a distraction. And then wouldn't it be crazy if, of course, that means they're protecting the ones who are actually on the list Wouldn't it be crazy if I told you I don't think there's actually a list. I know some FBI agent talked about it. What you gotta understand is when people talk about the list, they're just talking about provable celebrities that went to the Virgin Islands. I can tell you some celebrities that did. For instance, did you know that Bill Clinton, Kevin Spacey, and Chris Tucker took the Lolita Express like 9 or 12 times all throughout Africa and Europe with Ghislaine and Epstein? Wouldn't it be crazy if I canceled this clothing company about this very issue when he mistakenly thought that the 2006 court documents were new and then made a whole video on it? And then I critiqued him all out of love, Ian. And then since then, he hasn't responded to me. Side quest. It just took me an hour to pull up the Epstein flight log list that I had because it disappeared from my Gmail account. Gone. Can they delete files from your Gmail? Moving on. I found it, by the way, suckers. I had to dig deep, though. And wouldn't it be crazy if these files that they just released don't touch on a lot of the key questions we have? Ghislaine Maxwell's father's connection with Israeli intelligence, for instance. How about this picture of George Bush that was allegedly found in Epstein's possession? Would it be crazy if it also doesn't mention or touch on the fact that J.P. Morgan settled a $300 million lawsuit with Epstein victims last year or 2 years ago? So that means they knew what was going on because that's what the lawsuit alleged. And lastly, and I know some of you aren't going to like this, wouldn't it be crazy if Jeffrey Epstein had 14 different numbers to contact Donald Trump in his phone book? And wouldn't it be crazy if I were to suggest that the Epstein thing is a very real and serious thing that is probably still happening?
Yep.
But it has actually been turned into a distraction because no administration is ever going to tell us what happened. Have a good one.
I'm going to share something from Ian Carroll too, but here's my dogs yesterday too. So Brookfield deforested 9,000 hectares of the Cerrado flights from. Yeah, you think that guy's going to lead you out of a?
How can I help you?
So I
To receive that insurance, your insurance only paid $1,000.
needed to cancel it. I pay for a premium.
And
I should cancel my insurance. That is special. That is a.
Being a dead horse here a little bit. Services at back and claim your insurance monthly. You're paying.
I want to settle the war. Let's negotiate. And Zelensky has said we're not going to negotiate. But 92, the wall came down in the Soviet Union. Gorbachev said, I'm going to allow you to reunify Germany, but I want your commitment. After that, you will not move NATO 1 inch to the east. And we solemnly swore we wouldn't do it. Well, then in 97, we're going to move NATO 1,000 miles to the east and take 15 countries into it and surround the Soviet Union. We then overthrow the government. In 2014, their elected government and put in a Western sympathetic government. Russia then has to go into Crimea because they have a port at Vladivostok. It's their only warm water port. And they know the new government that we just installed is going to invite the US Navy into their port. So then the Russians go in. They only send 40,000 people. It's a nation of 44 million people. They clearly do not intend to conquer Ukraine, but they want us back at the negotiating table. The Russians just want a guarantee that Ukraine won't join NATO. Zelensky signs the treaty. Putin's people sign the treaty. And Putin starts withdrawing the Russian troops in good faith. And what happens? Joe Biden sends Boris Johnson, the British prime minister, over to Ukraine in April and forces him to tear up the treaty. And since then, 450,000 kids have died. None of them. Putin every day says, I want to settle the war. Let's negotiate.
Before I get into that, like my volume, the big influencers and stuff like that. But
Germany, but I want countries into it, and so only warm water. But the war. Listen.
Let's see, like what he posted earlier. He had some good stuff on. Okay, this was the
Holy shit, they actually just released the Epstein files. They just put them all online unredacted, and now we have all the information. Not. What they decided to do instead is to have a private meeting with a bunch of very mainstream conservative influencers in the White House, where they gave them all binders of the current first phase of disclosure. And now everything is going crazy. I'm going to try to not be super sassy and to actually give a balanced take on this one. First off, why is it not online in PDF format first right now already, so that everyone can look at the information and understand what's going on and everyone can dig in? I'm assuming that that is going to be happening today or tomorrow, and that this was just like, this wasn't an arranged meeting. These cameras were for a different thing, and they happened to catch these guys all walking out of the Oval Office. And so they kind of got ambushed by a bunch of media that was there for Keir Starmer. And so this was not supposed to be publicly sort of a thing right now, but it is. So a little bit of grace that maybe the PDFs are coming, maybe it is all going online, and that this is more of just a formality, like a way of symbolizing that we want the new media involved in the case, which is a great look. Can't help but point out, though, that the new media that they chose, while some, there's a number of personalities here, like there's Scott Pressler, I notice. I'm not really familiar with this woman's work at all. I know that Jack Posobiec is involved. Then there's DC Drano and Chaya Rich, whatever her name is. These two. And those two are both super Zionist, pro-Israel folk, which is okay. You can believe that if you want to believe that, but probably not the best people to represent disclosure when one of the primary questions that everyone has is exactly how much involvement did Israel have in this, because we all know that Jeffrey Epstein was working for Israel. So we probably don't want a bunch of Israel apologists in charge of the only copies of the documents that the public is getting. Like if you read through Chaya's page, it's literally just a whole bunch of Israeli Hasbara retweeted for your propaganda consumption. And if you don't know what Hasbara is, you should search Frank Lunt's Israel Project, and you'll find the 2009 Global Language Dictionary, which was part of a massive propaganda campaign that they orchestrated in 08-09, and they had one of the absolute grandmasters of corporate propaganda write them a guide for how Israelis should represent themselves to the world so that they trick everyone into having the best possible opinion of bombing children. It's a crazy document. You will see, like, it will expose so much of the language around the Israeli position in clear propaganda speak. When you search DC Drano's account for anything like Israel, it's a similar story. That being said, Posobiec's reporting on the Israel situation is a little more balanced. I'm not super familiar with his stances on it, but he seems, when you scroll his page and search for Israel, he seems to at least be reporting on both sides of the thing, not just reporting atrocities from one side, but atrocities from both sides. So the whole ordeal is a really bad look. And I think I've probably got more grace than most people in this world for it being a complicated thing, and it's going to take time to release the documents. They're not just in one place, in one box, that they can just put them all online. They have to do investigations into finding all the documents that are scattered across these intelligence agencies. They have to vet them and make sure that they haven't been, that materials have been added to discredit them, subtracted to obscure them. It is complicated. I understand that it will take time to release them all. And I also understand that this is not the way that they wanted this situation to be covered in the press. They didn't want it to be exposed right away. They've given out these binders, and, and maybe they are going to be releasing it all online in digital format for all of us in the coming days. That's damn well expected. But there are a few key takeaways that are just good for us all to absorb and understand. And one is that we need to be holding our government to account. Just because they say nice things does not mean they're going to do nice things. And we need to be paying attention and hold them to their word. Secondly, and far more subtly and importantly, is blackmail. We all think of as being what you do when you get someone caught on video or recording doing something really bad that they wouldn't want released, and then you can blackmail them by telling them, do what I want, say what I want, or else I'm going to release this blackmail. But there is a far more important and subversive type of influence that is similar to blackmail that we all need to be aware of, because it happens on our side. to our heroes, to people in this industry right in front of our eyes every day. See if you can catch it in this clip from Jack Posobiec.
The big pieces of this, and we didn't even realize that this was going to happen. I didn't realize this was going to happen. They didn't tell us beforehand. But AG Bondi, Pam Bondi, and congratulations to her. Thanks to her, a hero, a patriot, a stalwart defender of transparency. And by the way, someone who puts the actual interests of victims first and foremost in everything that she does, as well as the well-being of the American people and those who have been affected by heinous crimes like that of Jeffrey Epstein.
All right, a couple things. We're not putting Palestinian victims first, but let's not get into that right now. That's not the point. Did you notice the thing? It's very subtle. One of the most powerful mechanisms of control in politics, not as strong as blackmail, but far more common and far easier to leverage, completely legal, is access. Access is the bread and butter of political deal making, especially when you're talking about the media. And it is access to the president, access to his cabinet that administrations have been leveraging in order to control the media for decades. And this is no different. And so you notice that Jack has a lot of very nice things to say about Pam Bondi. And I would have some great things to say about her too. I think that in my limited understanding of her career and who she is, she seems pretty dope in a lot of regards. But remember that the guys and the girls getting access to this administration are hamstrung, because if they were to truly report in an unbiased way on this administration and to criticize this administration's flaws and to actually talk some shit when it's due, that access would probably not continue. And that is unfortunately just the nature of politicians and how they think, especially someone like Donald Trump. So remember, whoever they're giving access to, you inherently cannot trust to report accurately on them. And until we see administrations and politicians in general shift this culture of access-only journalism back to what journalism is supposed to be, which is holding the powerful to account and the powerful welcoming that accounting and transparency in, it's not exactly the most transparent administration in American history. That said, I'm staying optimistic. I'm wishing all the best for all the influencers that got these binders, and I hope that they do the right thing and report honestly.
Well, they got nothing really. They got a nothing burger. It was more of the same stuff that was already released and exposed like years ago that even I was sharing. That even, I think it was Lara Loomer. Like I shared that when I was going through my Instagram posts from like 2020, 2021, 2022 period, just to show you that I was sharing this stuff before Rumble. I started on Rumble because my accounts kept on getting deleted. And so